I think if I hear you call me Becky one more time, six-pack, I'm gonna pop your tops. All six of them.
Who are you?
Hey, this is Boogie Nights. Now, Boogie Nights came out around 1997, give or take, by Paul Thomas Anderson. Not Paul Wildstone Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson. And overall, I gotta say, it's a pretty good film, to be fair. I'm not a big Mark Wahlberg guy, but for the kind of role he's playing in this, to be fair, he does fine. And it's a pretty damn good cast. Burt Reynolds, may he rest in peace. Which, for what I understand, he hated the film, even though it gave him an Oscar nomination. Or maybe because he just did not working with the director. I don't know all the details as to why. But Burt Reynolds does a good job as this porn director who sees this kid, this dishwasher at a club played by Mark Wahlberg. Thinks he's a good looking guy and says, hey, you ever done movies before? Brings him into the porn scene. And amongst this, you got Heather Graham, who's called Roller Girl, because she's always on roller skates, even in sex scenes. John C. Reilly, who becomes his co-star in quite a few of these porn films. Don Cheadle, which he's an actor. You really don't see him act in any of the movies, though, that I remember. You mainly see him and his other job trying to get the stereo business going with his wife. A lot of times he wears cowboy outfits because he's a fan of that lifestyle, cowboy lifestyle. I thought that made it a little bit interesting, a little bit different. People making fun of his cowboy stuff. It's like, hey, this stuff's coming back. So, and I like Don Cheadle as an actor. William H. Macy is this guy who keeps finding his wife fucking folks. And she keeps telling him to shut up, you're embarrassing me. So you do feel bad for William H. Macy's character. Julianne Moore is a porn actress who also has a little bit of a custody going with her kids. Thomas Jane shows up later in the film. So it's a pretty damn good cast. And it's a very well directed film because it's definitely a movie that, well, I don't think it need to be as long as it is. It's like, what, 2.5 hours long? I don't think the movie needed to be that long, but at least the director, he's moving the camera. There's a lot of nice camera movements among scenes. It's not just place the camera there, cut, static shots. The soundtrack is fairly good of that time period of the 70s. Definitely the costumes. It definitely gives you that 70s feel. Just, I forgot what year it starts. And then it goes into 1980. And then it's funny, like the 70s is their great time. But when it got in the 80s, that's when all the shit hits the fan for them. I'm like, to me, it'd be the opposite. Like, to me, the 80s are the best, but not to them. And with success of porn, Mark Wahlberg talks about how, everyone's blessed with one special thing. In other words, he's got a big dick. Which you see at the end, I'm like, I'm blind, I don't need to see that. Yeah, I understand it's fake, it's prosthetic, but I'm like, I don't need to see it. But I guess the director's like, I gotta end the film somehow, so he shows his giant dick. I'm like, okay. I think that was the thing when I first saw this, I went, okay, like, so the last image I got is Mark Wahlberg's character having a giant dick. Okay. But there's a lot more to the film than that. I mean, there's some, let's say, it has a good cast. Each one has their own little story. Like Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, you get the idea that he's gay and he has a crush on Mark Wahlberg and tries to do something about it, but then he embarrasses himself. You got Don Cheadle trying to get money for the store. Things don't work out because of his past, but then something crazy happens where he does get the money. William H. Macy's, his finale of his character is almost funny, but more tragic. Burt Reynolds' character, where he's never going to shoot on videotape, but then ultimately does, and you can tell he's just sucking the soul out of him, where he doesn't have the passion making his films anymore. I will admit, part of me, maybe because I miss Burt Reynolds, because I miss the guy. I don't have a lot of his films. I don't know if a lot of his films are even on Blu-ray, sad to say, but I would like to watch more of his films. He's a guy I miss. Great actor. Sadly, when he got into the 90s, well, more like the 2000s, he didn't do a lot of great roles. I mean, Driven? That was a shitty film. Not because of Burt Reynolds, but just a shitty film. Just sad. I mean, he was in like those Universal Soldier TV movies for HBO or Showtime, whatever the fuck they were. He was in this one film with Cuba Gooding Jr. I forgot what the fuck it was called. I think Endgame or something. It was supposed to go into theaters, but it went straight to video. I was saying, I would like if he was the star, if we followed Burt Reynolds' career as a director from the 70s to 80s. Because Mark Wahlberg doesn't do a bad job. To be honest, though, there's other characters I was more interested in than Mark Wahlberg's character. I was more interested in Don Cheadle's character. This guy who's a porno actor, but he's trying, wear these cowboy suits and he wants to get in the stereo business. I was more interested in, like I said, Burt Reynolds' character. How he's a guy who likes to make films, and they're porn films but with stories, but then fight against the push of going to videotape, and then ultimately having to do it. He's like, I'm never going to shoot on videotape. Then ultimately he does. The scene, one of the best scenes to me in the movie is when Burt Reynolds, there's this guy he worked with called the Colonel, and he finds out that the guy dealt with something horrible. So I think he goes to the jail to confirm for himself. Does Burt Reynolds, how in prison scenes you have the window, phone here, phone on the other side. So Burt Reynolds is talking to this guy, and then the guy pretty much admits that he's into child, what. And just like Burt Reynolds, just the acting he has, or just his face and his reaction, and like the other guy just begging, please tell me you're my friend, please tell me you're still my friend. And Burt just is like shaking his head, is like putting the phone down. I like the way the director did this, where we see from Burt's point of view, and we can't hear the guy anymore. Like he's trying to talk on the phone, then he's trying to talk to him, and almost ready to pound on the glass, but we don't hear any dialogue. And then you tell like the guy sort of gives up because it's it's an interesting way. It tells the whole story without dialogue. That Burt, he may be a porn director, but there's a line that you don't cross. And in Burt's character's point of view, this guy is now incognito forever. Is now the subject of fuck off and die is on the folder that now Burt Reynolds put this guy in. And that's what I'm talking about, the direction. There's some nice bits of direction like that scene. And again, the way that was done, I thought, was one of the best parts of the film. And you did Burt acting without needing dialogue. I thought that was rather good. And there's some nice bits of humor. Of course, Mark Wahlberg, he found success as a singer, but good luck trying to get him to talk about it nowadays. Marky Mark is funky bunch, feel it, feel it. Now, he never wants to talk about that. I'm like, embrace it, man. It's part of your fucking history. So he does a demo because he's trying to get away from porn, and you got the touch, you got the power. I do wonder how they came up with that song, because that's the song from Transformers, Stan Bush. But the way the years are, apparently this is before that. So Dirk Diggler was singing You Got the Touch before the Transformers movie? I do wonder again what the thinking was by choosing that song that everyone knows from the animated Transformers film to be the song that he tries to sing. Like, who made the decision? Where did that decision come from? But you know, people do remember it. Of course, Mark Wahlberg is singing badly on purpose to show how shitty Dirk Diggler is as a singer. And just how these, you know, spoiler alert, how these characters, their lives kind of go off kilter. Again, spoilers starting now. From Mark, his music career does not get going. Burt Reynolds hates having to shoot on videotape. And you tell that, again, he may be a porno director, but he's a decent guy, because there's a scene where Heather Graham trying to shoot this scene in a limo, and the guy that's there is a former classmate and treats her like shit, so Burt Reynolds beat the shit out of the guy. So I like that, you know, he stands up for the people he cares for. Julianne Moore is trying to custody of her kid. Earlier, William H. Macy finds his wife fucking one more time and gets a gun, 2 pieces of biscuit, bang bang, and then shoots himself, and then that cuts to 1980. I'm like, well, that's a hell of a thing to... That's definitely an impactful scene to then cut to the new decade. Happy New Year! You dead! Again, I don't think the movie needed to be 2.5 hours long. People don't think I'm being shallow in saying this. I don't think you needed to end with his big dick showing. Because... this is going to sound stupid to people, but that kind of... it bothers me, because the rest of the film, it kind of almost want to say it trivializes a good chunk of the movie, where I think it does a decent job, you know, showcasing these different characters and their personalities and their ups and downs, and then by the end, most of them, you know, they get back together and they're doing all right now. I just feel like, well, we gotta end it with something that people will remember, but at the same time, there are people that remember just that part. Well, to me, the parts I remember is that phone scene I mentioned between Burt Reynolds and the Colonel, or... I'm not making sense. It just went... like, when I first saw this film, I kind of went... kind of like that. But I must be alone, because the movie got a lot of big critical notices and some box office, but I guess I didn't really see the point of it, other than, they keep hinting he's got big dick. Now you saw that he's got big dick, and I'm like, okay, and then what? And then what? I mean, that's kind of my reaction, like, okay. I guess to leave people with a shock moment. It's like a horror film that has a cheap jump scare at the end. Only this is like here's a shock moment. Oh my god. It's like, maybe there's something I don't get as it pertains to the arc of the story, but it's just like, it didn't feel like an exploitation film except that moment. It's okay if the rest of the film felt more of an exploitation, maybe, but I don't know, I didn't really feel it. I don't know. I thought the third act, when they got into the 80s, in a weird way, that was, other than the few parts I mentioned, that was the less interesting part of the film. I don't know why. I can't. Sometimes it's hard for me to put into words other than just how I felt. I like the "you got the touch" scene. I like the phone bit I mentioned with Burt Reynolds and the Colonel guy. But the rest of it is like, okay, cool to see Thomas Jane there and this drug deal that goes wrong. But I mean, at the end of the day, I did like Boogie Nights. It's not a film I rewatch a lot, but it's a well-made movie, and I do think it does a nice job showcasing the 1970s. And like I said, there's nice moments of levity. It has a really good cast. Mark Wahlberg, to give credit's due, I don't think he's bad in the film. And rest in peace, Burt Reynolds. I really do miss the guy. And he did a good job in this. Again, part of me wishes the entire film was about him, because he was the character I'm most interested in. But again, pretty decent film. So thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.